unexpected day off yesterday, and I managed to watch this video done on YouTube by a guy that I'm going to follow a bit more now because it's very interesting. But it was about how oil came about, how they drilled for it, which in itself was interesting, but it's who got into it. Now, I'll cut to the chase because it's quite long. The Rockefeller got into it all, or the Rockefeller family. But his father, before they were in oil, was a snake oil salesman who was a cheat and a liar, and who got his missus pregnant with X amount of kids and then left and then found another woman, got her pregnant. And he had to keep moving around changing his name because basically he was selling alleged cures for cancer which did nothing. And he'd make these potions up and he flogged them off, then he'd get found out and had to move along. And he said the best way that I educated my kids was cheat them every opportunity I got to teach them to toughen up and get clever. And basically the son, Rockefeller, learned this. Well, anyway, quite a shrewd chap, got into oil and learned, you know, buy the land around it and patenting and stuff like this. Well, he ended up making Standard Oil because a lot of people were doing it. What he did was he went in with other people and bought out other companies. I'm trying to get to the point here. But after he became unbelievably wealthy in a time where there was a lot of people wandering around on the breadline and not being able to feed themselves, malnutrition and all the rest of it, he worked out that he'd started to get a bit of a bad reputation. So he got himself somebody who got into the media and started, because the media were after him prior to that, and he started to spin the media and work the media. And he got himself media outlets and stuff like this. But the key thing, this is the interesting thing, was around that time, there wasn't compulsory school. What there was people who were schooled, and bearing in mind, the people in America were a lot more literate than you would imagine back in the time. But the schooling wasn't as in the way regulated like it is now. So there were people that were going to school learning Latin and other stuff, and reading stuff that made people think, and actually getting a real version of history. And what was happening from that is you were getting people who then went on themselves to be writers, thinkers, people who would inspire people and bring out the best in people, and people who saw through people and that kind of stuff. Well, Rockefeller then set up institutes and stuff like this, and what they managed to do was bring about an education system, I'll get to the point, bring about an education system where they taught people just enough. They reworked history to put themselves in a good light, and to bring kids up to be good little servants and learn just enough so that they could then slot into the factories, into the pits, into the blue collar jobs, and not question much. Whereas, had they have gone to the schools that were previous to that, they may well have looked at the system and found out that the system was bent, corrupt. They may have looked at why are these people up here robbing the land, robbing the people, why is there such a difference in wealth, why are these people corrupt, why are these people being bought, why are these people not thinking of the future, why is it that they're going into different countries and doing unspeakable things. So basically they set up the education system as you know it now in America, but they were the ones that started out, and basically indoctrinated people and told them not to think about anything else, don't question, follow your flag. And when they say I pledge my allegiance to a flag, right, all these people, they love their country, good, they love their flag, good, but the people behind the scenes that were making sure the education went the way they wanted and making sure people only saw in the news what they wanted were the people then that were causing wars around the world so that they could change the system, change who made the most amount of money. Now, it wasn't just America that was doing this. Rothschilds came from a different country. Now, it's funny because one, which were, the one I was talking about a second ago, I had a mind blank. One of them went from oil into banking, and the Rothschilds went from banking into oil. And they were in competition with each other. But anyway, at a later date, the Bilderberger group was set up, and they all came together, basically speaking, including royalty from our family that was represented, because our own people had enough to do with this, right? So you had the Dutch Shell, which was in part, I think, mostly owned by the royalty over there. BP, which, when you have a look at it, our royalty has something to do with that. And then all these different companies, and they had to work out how they were going to control markets and make sure they got the most out of it. And then things like when the electric light bulb came along, and that looked like that was going to put the oil company out of business, because up until then they were using oil lamps. Anyway, they managed to get some German to make a combustion engine, and well, the rest is history. Because they were running around in battery cars back then, believe it or not. Not very fit, not very useful, didn't go very far or whatever, much like the ones of today, really. However, what they then did, and this is interesting, say for instance there was places in America that had a lovely transport system, they'd buy that up and dismantle it, which made people have to go out and buy cars to get about. That's simplifying it a lot more than it actually, there was a lot more to it than that. But these rich globalists would make sure that something that worked in our favour but not in theirs, they would change. So it worked in their favour and not ours. And when you look at the education system now, the education system that is run to indoctrinate, you have to break down a society. And central banking is one of these things that, whether you know it or not, has a massive impact on the day-to-day life of us. When you look at things like bubbles, you hear this boom bubble, right? Take Japan, for instance. What they wanted to do was change the system. So what they did over there, right? This is not the Rockefellers, but this leads on to what I'm trying to say here. In the 80s, they put so much money into the system. They were giving out money like it was confetti, and there was such a boom that land prices went up. Okay, everything went up. Everybody was living like they were on a festival every day. They were over the moon. But they did this because there would be a collapse, and after the collapse, they could have made things easier by putting money into the system, but they didn't do this, right? There's a lot more to the central bank and who controlled the central bank, but the basics are they wanted to change the political system over there. So they made a boom and then consequently a bust after that. And when people were absolutely miserable and needed change, then they offered them the change. Now, our central banks over here have, and many countries have helped to make us go up and then down, and then up and then down. And they have a massive input on our lives. You might know people in the past that have lost businesses because at the time when they set it up, things were going well and the bank managers were all too happy to give them money and loan the money offset against maybe the house or whatever it was. Things were looking rosy, and all of a sudden this recession, or a double dip recession as we've had it over here, come along. Well, these don't come along by chance. We used to think they did, it was just unfortunate. This is in no way the case. It's fucking engineered. And it's engineered for reasons. So when you look at it, our entire life, we're sheep. And they are the shepherd, right? And the system are the sheepdog. We're told where to go, what we can and can't do, and we're guided all the way. And when you look at it like that, it's very angry. I get angry about this, I'm very annoyed. But it's amazing. Some of these documentaries you should look at, right? JFK, 9/11, JFK to 9/11, everything's a rich man's drink. That's the one that got me going. And then there was the Four Horsemen. That's another one that got me going, all right? And there's been many others, but this one that I watched last night, I put it onto my Telegram group. The link to my Telegram group is also in the description here. But it was a real eye-opener. Now, whether the guy got everything in it right, he could have got stuff wrong. However, the grips of it, or the major bulk of it, what I can understand was right. And it's a real, when you see things like this, you go through all these different emotions: anger, frustration, disbelief, bewilderment. You question everything in the past. And you think about the future, and you think about what are our choices? What can we do? Well, there are bits we can do, there's bits we can't do. But you should never give up. And at the moment, because they have made a system that will collapse, has to collapse. It can't go on the way it is, because their greed made sure that this system will collapse. But you can bet one thing, they will come out on the other side still as the banking system that will be then, still as the people that control political people, if you want. They will control what we think, what our kids think. And you can see that they've poisoned the kids that we have now, because those will be the people that decide or help decide the direction that we go next. And they've always said, we'll get to the kids, we'll indoctrinate them, and they will do what we want in the future. These people leave nothing to chance, and they plan years and years ahead. Everything you see now has been a plan. So it was interesting to watch, it was interesting to think about, and there's so much here to talk about, but obviously too much to put in a little video like this. But I just sat there and thought, how evil are these people? And I can't, as an average human, I can't comprehend that level of greed, that level of, I don't know what the long word for psychopath, is it psychopathy? I don't know. The evil that goes through them, and then the evil that's instilled in the rest of the family, and how they must sit around the table with the kids and the grandfolk, patting themselves on the back at how wonderful they are and how they are the rulers of the world, and how everything in the world doesn't happen unless they say so. They're like a massive version of the gangsters of America, the mafia. Because back in the day, I mean, especially in New York, a building wouldn't go up unless the mafia okayed it, because the mafia were in charge of the Teamsters, the labour, the concrete, and all the other things. They could hold up due to health and safety or whatever, through all these different things. They could hold up people so that nothing got made. These people, in their own way, are, if they say so, something happens, and if they don't want something to happen in the world, they have the means, the finance, and the ability to destroy anything that tries to resist. So things just don't resist. I think that when you've worked hard in your life, if you're a good guy, and you've managed to amass an amount of something, then if somebody comes along and says to you, do the right thing, oh boy, we'll manage to take everything off you, people will do what they're told, because they're so scared of losing what they have. Now, this all comes down to education as well. We are educated now, and have been since they got into it, to grow up to think, I need to have a house, I need a car, the car that they'll supply, and that has to be fueled by oil that they need. And incidentally, they also ran medicine as well, Rockefeller company. So while we had homeopathic medicine that worked well, they had to basically do a hit piece on that for a while to tell people that this stuff's no good, and what you need to do is trust us in our medicine, which also made them billions and millions of billions. That's another thing. So they run the system that tells you that if you are to be judged good as a human, you have to be greedy, you have to be materialistic, you have to be massively competitive, you have to think of yourself, you have to do better than the next guy. And if you see somebody at the end of the road with a better car than you, then you better work harder, because you need to get a better car than them, because you need to look the best. Your missus, she'll want 2 kids. They'll have to go to the best schools. And you need to rub it in everybody else's face. You need to go and have X amount of holidays. And then also, while you're doing all this, which is completely against what makes a good person, by the way, because what they probably did is took the Bible, looked at all the fucking what makes you a good person, and then went completely the opposite, because these fuckers are evil. But I'm not getting on to religion. And then what they did was, because they got hold of the TV and media and stuff like this, they're constantly filling your mind, because they own the TV, they own media, they own advertising and stuff like that, that you need to buy the latest thing. Incidentally, they either supply the company that gives you the latest thing with plastics, oil, and other products, or they actually own the company. Or they're bankrolling the company that sells you what you need. But the marketing's so beautiful and shiny, do you believe you need it? Fuck me, I did as a kid. the latest Walkman that came along, the latest stereo. Couldn't afford it, but I wanted it. And then they go and fashion. So as soon as you got yourself a wardrobe, you need to change it again. It always, when I looked at football, being naive, I went, why do they keep changing their kit? It means we've got to buy another one. Duh, that's exactly it. But I was naive. When you learn this, it's so frustrating. But at a young age, I didn't get the latest stuff. My old man, you want it, you go out and earn it. And I was a lazy bastard. So fuck that, I'll just go without. Very quickly I learned that I could go without and it was no big deal. So then I would get clothes when I actually needed them, i.e. I grew out of them, or I ended up yet again working on a Capri or somebody else's car in my best kit and fuck the clothes up. So here we are. Traffic jam. So yeah, I was one of these that didn't actually fall into it. I mean, we had kids that were all trying to compete with each other with having the latest car, or you know, the fastest car and all the rest of it. They were all bank loaned up to the tits at a very young age. And another thing that they always said, banking, get them in debt and keep them there. And that's exactly what they did. Oh dear, we have a Mexican standoff here. This person doesn't realise that that vehicle is going to take a lot more to swing out than that. And it's frustrating when you can see it. So yeah, and that's another thing. Literally getting people so far into debt that they have to work every hour God sends just to keep themselves with their head above water, right? And the banking system, along with all the other systems, they all work together about how they're going to do this. And then in between this, they'll work out, where's the next drama? Where's the next war? And they engineer that. So all of my life, whilst growing up, I was watching the Middle East go off. I was watching Afghanistan, and then we had the two Gulf Wars, and then there was the Falklands War, and then the expansion of NATO. All these different things. All of this was led by them, okay? And when you realise this, it's just, if you ever want to know what evil is, look at central banking. If you ever want to know what evil is, look at huge corporations. If you want to know what evil is, Bilderberger Group, and look at the members of it. Anyway, I've got to get on and do some work, but I thought I'd share those thoughts with you. I'll see you in a bit.